So welcome, Susie. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Hi, Claire. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It is honestly a real pleasure to have you. I've said to you before, but I watched your first birth video with your daughter Daisy when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So 5 years ago, I remember watching it at my hypnobirthing class. And honestly, I'd never seen a birth like it, because we're so used to seeing really medicalized births in hospitals, and they all look a certain way, don't they? I talk about this all the time anyway. So it was the first time I'd seen such a natural, positive birth, and it completely changed how I viewed birth, which was amazing, because then from that time I think I visualized my birth to be like that, and that's a really important part of hypnobirthing, isn't it? The visualization. So I was visualizing it, and it was just amazing. So thank you so much for sharing it, because I know it must have helped so many people. And me as a teacher, I show it to a lot of people as well during courses, and they just love it. And then also your second one I also show now with Iris, which is just beautiful. I cry every time I watch it. I've seen it so many times because I show it so often, but still every time it gets me. And I have grown men crying at it on courses, like sobbing. It is very emotional. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing them.
Thank you. It's just so gorgeous to know that they're both so well received, because Daisy's birth has been out there a long time. She's almost 10. She's 10 in like 2 weeks. So 10 years it's been out there and around the world, and it's just amazing to still get so much beautiful feedback.
Yeah, I think a lot of birth workers show it. I know a lot of fellow teachers show it to all of their clients. So yeah, it gets a lot of views.
Yeah. In fact, my sister-in-law is just also qualified to be a hypnobirthing practitioner, and she went for her training, and she said that they put Daisy's birth up, and they had to kind of work through it and say, what did they think about the partner, and how is he holding space for Susie? And she's like, this is so weird. This is my brother. My sister-in-law. So yeah, that was pretty amazing as well. It's just so good that it's making, that it's helping women and men to see that birth can be so different to what we're told.
It's a really good, it shows the techniques really well as well, like the techniques that we teach in hypnobirthing. It shows a lot of the techniques, so that's why it's good for people to watch it, because if they've just learned about all of these hypnobirthing techniques, it really shows how they can be used in practice. And yeah, it's just incredibly beneficial. We need, this is the kind of birth that we need to be seeing. We need to be seeing those births, not the dramatized ones we see on TV, but obviously they're probably more entertaining for people, but this is far more useful for people to watch. So yeah, it's so beautiful. So what was it firstly that got you interested in hypnobirthing? Because as you said, your daughter is almost 10. So although, hypnobirthing has always been around, because it isn't really a thing, is it? It's just going back to basics. But it couldn't have been that popular 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I started doing hypnobirthing 14 years ago, and it just was not known about at all.
Yeah.
I've gone for some hypnosis. I've been having some hypnosis for something, I can't remember what it was. And I remember on the wall, the lady had about hypnobirthing. Are you pregnant? Are you going to be trying for a baby? Then consider hypnobirthing. And I remember saying to her, what's hypnobirthing? And she told me, and I was like, no way. Wow. So we at the time were trying for a baby. And then very quickly, soon after that, I was pregnant. And I went for this hypnobirthing training with my friend and our partners, the four of us. And yeah, it blew my mind. So that was with my daughter, Seren, who's now almost 14. But the interesting thing was, even though I had done the course, I'd read the book, for me, and this is only my journey, for me, when I went to hospital, I kind of found myself in this place of, just when we can get into that whole thing of you're not dilating how you should be, you're not doing this as you should be, because obviously they have a graph and women are like robots, right? Supposed to dilate an hour and every hour and a centimeter, and I wasn't. So I kind of went down this very then medical path, and I still had a very empowered birth, and I still came out of it feeling like I'd made the right decisions. but I also felt this overwhelming feeling that a lot of my choices were taken away from me, because I was in the hospital system, which is why for Daisy's birth, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be at home, and I'm not going to get into that whole situation if you're not dilating enough and we need to put you on the drip and da da da. I thought I'm gonna take back my power and have it at home, and that's what I did. And I think that's right. I was a hypnobirthing practitioner after I had Saren. I was a hypnobirthing practitioner for about 2 years, and I loved it. And I used to obviously, teach women, but I had a beautiful empowered birth, but I also had an epidural. So that was always at the back of my mind as well. And then I was teaching these beautiful women, and they were having these beautiful natural births. And I thought, I need to be able to do that as well. But it didn't matter, because I'd still had a really empowered birth. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about hypnobirthing. As long as you feel empowered as a woman, as a mother, no matter what happens, if you feel empowered, if you feel like you made the right choice, then, because that really helps with our mental health as well. Anyway, so then I then decided that I would film the birth, because at the time, going back a decade, there wasn't many births to show. You didn't have all of the births on YouTube to do with hypnobirthing. Nobody knew what it was. You'd say, I'm having a hypnobirth, and people were like, you're having a what? Hippo birth? What? And so just literally no one knew what it was. So that's why I decided that I wanted to film it. Because a lot of the materials that we were using, I'm sure it's not like this now, Claire, but the materials I was using, 12, 13, 14 years ago was films or videos from the 70s, which is still great, but I wanted to just have something a bit more current to use, which is why I decided to film it. So that's kind of how I got into it.
So yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And thank goodness you did film it, because it really has helped so many people. And also, there's a lot more videos like that now that you can access. So it's also probably inspired a lot of people to do the same. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about being in a hospital, I suppose that is, I always say to everybody, which is completely right, that you have to be where you feel comfortable to give birth effectively. So for some people, genuinely, that will be in a hospital, but for some people, it will be at home. But you're completely right. Being in that hospital environment does increase the chances of these things happening, because it's all within easy reach. So, all of these things are easily got, aren't they? All these interventions. So it kind of seems like, well, they're here, we might as well use them. Whereas at home, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You don't even think about it, don't consider it, because it's not there. It's not an option. And it just, allows you to get on and just do what your body needs to do much easier. So how did hypnobirthing change your perspective of birth? So going back to before you did it, how did it change how you viewed birth after you'd done it?
So I think initially, when I did the course initially, when I was pregnant 14 years ago, and we did that course with a hypnotherapist, there was a lot that was missed as well. And then I realized that when I became a trainer or an educator, I realized, gosh, there's huge chunks that were missed. And what was missed really was the understanding of the body and the uterus and the contractions or the surges and what is actually happening. And I remember when I went for my training, and I don't know if you do this, but they do the whole thing with the hands. So you have your uterus, and then you have your contractions, and it kind of, if you're tense, it do this whole little thing. Yeah. And when they explained that to me, and explained that when you have that fear, when you're not using your breath, when you're not calm, that your uterus will literally contract, and will go against everything your body's supposed to be doing, or the blood will move away from your uterus, and then it's not, soft and pliable. And when I started to understand that, that was a big light bulb moment for me. Because then I thought, oh, wow, and understanding that, and then really with my second birth, with Daisy's birth, having gone through the proper education, not that you have to train as a hypnobirthing practitioner, but just, I think for this, the hypnosis lady, it was only so new as well, it was just starting. I'm sure they've added so much to it. But I think when I really understood about staying calm and the light touch massage, really connecting with your partner, because I think first time round, Carl was not empowered, so he just kind of sat in the chair, didn't really know what to do. Second time round, obviously, for anyone that's seen Daisy's birth, he was amazing. And I think then understanding it and understanding each bit and bringing it together, and then actually just doing it, being in the work, remembering it in birth was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was a fantastic birth partner, and that's one of the reasons it's great to show as well, because again, it's not just women who probably feel this kind of fear towards birth, but men definitely, because if you think about all of the times you see births on television and in films, men birth partners are just made to look like idiots, really, aren't they? They just,
Yeah.
you know, their job is to stand there telling bad jokes and looking awkward. So it's really important that they also feel empowered, because it is such a team effort, and it really is. It's a real, you know, whoever your birth partner is, it is a team effort, and you need them there. You need somebody there supporting you and advocating for you, and, you know, holding your hand, or, you know, reading scripts, doing whatever it is that makes you feel relaxed. So yeah, he's a very good example of that. So
Hey,
can you share, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just thought of something then actually, but I wanted to get in. When you saying about so what you kind of see on television, what you see in movies about birth, but the one thing I've noticed as well, Claire, is that what we see on social media. So there's a lot of influencers on social media that will have their birth, and they you know, they're quite traumatized by it, which can happen. Of course, there's so much of that, and there's a definite place for women being supported through that as well. Which I do think is missing as well. But anyway, but what I've seen is, you know, a lot of women will share their stories, because I really feel that when you share, it's healing. You know, you're sort of releasing it, you're getting it out. And I've seen some of them with like so many followers, I'm talking hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, sharing about a really horrific birth that they've had. And there's so many people following them, and young girls, and which is, you know, that's part of their journey. But what I really want to say for anyone listening to the podcast as well, that if they go on to like have a birth or film the birth, and it's positive and it's amazing, and to put it out there, you know, don't be afraid, don't be scared. Because before I pressed go that day on the YouTube video, I was kind of like, what the hell am I doing? You know, and certainly with even irises, that was a big take a deep breath moment, because that was a lot more, you could see a lot more, you know. But I want that vibration to get out there, to have this ripple effect, because I think women need it. So you know, if anybody ever feels like I'm going to share this, or just do it, put your birth video out, share your story, you know, and really share those positive births, because it's so needed.
It is. That is such a good message, because we're very quick to share negative things, I think, and not so quick to share the positives. So it is so important that people share it. And I think one of the reasons as well is because sometimes I think when you have a really positive birth experience, you either feel like you don't want to share it because you don't want people to think, oh, I had a bad experience, they had a good one, and for them to feel badly about themselves. But also I find sometimes people might say, oh, well, you know, you were lucky or something, you know, it kind of gets kind of brought down a bit, and it's all to do with you were lucky, rather than well, you put in the work and you really believed in it and things like that. So I think that kind of puts people off sometimes from sharing their positive experiences. But it is so important, which is one of the reasons I do this podcast, and I speak to people that have such positive experiences, no matter how they look. You know, yours were beautiful and at home and the water and gorgeous, but sometimes people's experiences are, like you said, in hospital, and incredibly positive. So it's really important that there's a picture of all of it out there, so that no matter who's listening or who's having a baby, they can access that and feel positive from it. So what were your birth experiences? So, I mean, just briefly, obviously, because I know you have 4 gorgeous children, but I mean, we know daisies and irises, but can you share, I mean, you said about Seren, but Flynn's as well. Can you just share a little bit about each?
So, I talked about Seren's. Seren's was still a really positive birth experience. For me, I guess I felt like I gave a lot over, you know, a lot of trust, and I didn't kind of really come back to my intuition. With Daisy, I kind of did all my practicing. I did everything I needed to do with my breathing, my practicing, all the things that you know, I used to listen to the hypnosis CD. I think it was a CD 10 years ago. Oh no, I think I had like a little iPod. I used to listen to that over. You know, I did all the things, but then what was amazing is then when I went into the birth, and for anyone that's seen it, I was so innocent to birth, really. You know, I kept asking questions, and I could feel it, like I think I was reading a Ina May book as well, Ina May's book, Guide to Childbirth, which I just love. I just read that again with Iris. And I wanted to have this experience. It just felt very intuitive for this particular birth to be in nature. So I remember going for a big walk around the woods and walking, and I'd lean on a tree when I'd have a surge, and it was only sort of early labor. And then I tried to do as much of it as I could before the midwife came round. And then as soon as she came round, I was fully dilated. So, but it just happened so quickly. It really did happen so quickly. Well, no, I think I wasn't fully dilated, maybe 7 centimeters or something, but very different experience to Sarah. And it was a really quick labor, 3 hours from start to finish. But there was so much innocence in it. You know, I was, you know, is this really the head? And do I really want to push? And, you know, really questioning myself.
Yeah.
And then with Flynn, because Daisy's had been so, you know, easy, and I wouldn't say easy.
Yeah, it's never easy,
but,
isn't it? But...
you know, it's just, yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? And you have to really go within, and what an experience. But I feel that because it had been generally, you know, quite a surprise that I'd gotten to the pool, she came, few birth breaths, and wow, I guess I thought it would be the same with Flynn. So I didn't do as much preparation. So I didn't do my breathing every day. I wasn't really practicing that. My visualizations, I kind of was a bit slapdash, you know. And Daisy's was 3 hours, Flinny's was longer and a lot more, still beautiful, but very tribal. I remember that I was making noises that I was wondering, was that me?
Wow,
I was looking in the room like, was that me? It's just really in my body, in these tribal noises, and very, very different. And I'd been in the water for, it felt like a lot longer, but I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt like I was in it for about an hour in this sort of the pushing stage, if you will. No, we don't say pushing, but the second stage. Yeah. And then, so I decided to go to the toilet, and then as soon as I sat on the toilet, Flynn came. So it was very quickly, and that's why I couldn't share the birth, because I filmed that one as well.
Did you film it?
Filmed it. It was my intention to share it and put it out on YouTube, and then with the whole kind of end bit, which is the, you know, the crescendo, you really want that bit, that was just all missed because it was in the bathroom. So I remember just grabbing hold of the sink, and the midwife ran, and Carl caught Flynn. So that was very different, and it made me realize, gosh, that I needed to again with Iris, there was a little bit of a gap, 7 years, really do that preparation again. Yeah. But I wanted to share a bit about Iris's birth as well, because this is the first time that I intuitively, throughout my pregnancy, towards the end of the pregnancy, probably 3rd trimester, the few weeks and days running up to the birth and the birth, that I intuitively spoke to Iris. Oh. So I'd never done that before. Okay. There'd always been this kind of, yeah, you know, I was in tune with the baby, and I've talked to the baby and all the little things that we do, but I hadn't really, and this might sound a bit woo-woo, but I hadn't really kind of connected with this energy of the baby and spoke to her about what she wanted. Amazing. And we had a bit of a scare, and I won't go fully into detail, but we had a bit of a scare 24 hours before, where they wanted to take me into hospital and induce me. And there was quite a lot of pressure, and there was quite a lot of reasons as to why I'd go in. And again, I've been really mindful, because I want to spread positivity, not kind of put scary stuff into mama's brains. But yeah, it was a huge decision that I had to make, and a really scary one. And that night, I started to journal. I did a meditation, and I spoke to Iris, and I asked her what she wanted. And she told me through my thoughts that she wanted to be born at home and to trust. And 24 hours later, she was born at home. It was huge. And I spoke to Carl, and he said, look, I trust as well. Spoke to the midwife. She said, look, I trust you, and I trust Iris, and I trust us that we can do this. And that was the first time I thought, wow, it kind of went against statistics and fear. Yeah. and all of the things, and really went with my intuition. And my intuition was so strong. Had this baby at home. And then, yeah, in the labor as well, there was a time when I spoke to her and I was wondering about whether to get up, whether to stay in the pool. You know, I was just, what do I do? And I wasn't trusting. And I went in and I closed my eyes and I spoke to her, and she said, I'll be here in the next surge. And to turn around, to turn over. And I turned over, and then she was born. Wow. And it was unbelievable. So that was the first time. And I just wish I'd had that knowledge before, that you can really speak to these babies and they can talk back to you.
That's amazing.
If you will. So yeah,
that's so good. I mean, yeah, like instinct and intuition, that is 9 times out of 10 right. So definitely worth listening to. But how amazing. And so was her labor quick, or?
It was 2.5 hours.
Oh, okay.
It was 2.5 hours. And because of this particular scare, I knew that I needed to, when it was the time to kind of birth her, you know, and bear down, push her out, whatever you want to say, birth a baby, then I knew I felt intuitive that I needed to do it quite quick as well. And my body knew that, and Iris knew that, which is again why I use this primal sound, which I never did before. And that kind of came out. And so I used a lot of intuition, but yeah, the intuition is huge, because I think we're in this place in time in the world right now where there's so much fear about birth, and there's so many statistics, and they change all the time. And I found having a baby over 40 and having a baby in Australia was vastly different to the UK. Really? I was almost kind of treated as if I was like 70.
Oh, really?
But I just had to keep coming back to myself and thinking, you know, I'm fit. I feel young. I feel fit. I feel healthy. My body feels amazing. And just, I wouldn't, for me personally, this is only my journey. I have to be really open with that. But I wouldn't even, we chose to have a home birth, and the whole thing was being done at home. So I would never even go into the hospital. And they wanted me to go in and have, you know, some tests. And I just, at the end, and I said no, because I knew for me, if I stepped into that fear, that I wouldn't have had the birth that I needed and what Iris needed. So again, my midwife was so beautiful. She kept saying, make your decision based on your intuition and not fear. So I used a lot of the hypnobirthing fear release scripts. So for anything, just to get rid of it. And then, yeah, it was amazing. If I was younger, I'd do it again.
I mean, do you know what though? Having those like lovely positive birth experiences, I've had 2 children, but we don't really want any more. But I always say, like, I'd love to do the birth again. You know, I probably wouldn't want to have another baby, but I want to do the birth. Not looking likely, but it's amazing. It's such a powerful, empowering experience that how can you not want to do it again? Because it's just incredible. It's amazing. I love the midwife saying that to you about making your decisions based off of intuition and not fear. That's completely right. You know, we so often in birth, unfortunately, decisions are just made based on fear, and then it's not maybe the right decision for you. So I love that. I think that's a really great saying. Have your older children watched the births?
Yes. So in preparation, our intention with Iris's birth was to have, she was our 3rd home birth, 4th baby. And we wanted to have a family-led birth. So all the family would be there and the children, and but when I sat down with the children, not one of them wanted to be there. And I was like, oh, no way. And I've been manifesting this. So my eldest daughter said, honestly, I don't really want to, I want to be there at the end, but I just don't feel, and the other 2 little ones, and I asked them separately, and they all said that, and I said, wow, okay. But then we thought, well, let's just go with whatever happens, you know, if they are awake, if it's in the day, whatever happens, let's just see what presents, and let's just go with it. And I kind of worked through my stuff as well. So if they were around and I was in birth, and that I would just not hold on to them saying they didn't want to be there. I just go into my zone. So I did all of that. But then actually, I went into labor about, it was fully labor at like midnight. And she was born at 4 o'clock, 20 past 4. And my eldest, Saren, who's almost 14, she was around. And she just didn't want to go to bed, and she's so excited, and she was watching me as I was having my surges, and it was really sweet. Actually, I was on the phone to my best friend in the UK who told me, you need to go and put the phone down to me and phone the midwife. And then Seren wanted to go to bed, so she went to bed. And then Iris was born, and then we waited for an hour for the placenta to be birthed. And then we went to get the children. And even with my primal roaring, nobody woke up.
Really?
So then afterwards, because we decided to have it all filmed. Daisy's we did ourselves with the camcorder in the corner of the room, but this time we decided to have a photographer come in and film it, and then we watched it as a family, and it was so beautiful. My eldest was crying, and yeah, they just love it. And I think as well that they have such a positive outlook and experience of birth, you know, and Daisy's seen her birth. We watched that lots and lots of times to prep them. And even for our little boy Flynn, he just looks at birth as such a positive thing. And I think that that's such a great thing for our kids.
It is. It's such a gift, because we didn't have that, you know, growing up. Our kind of generation didn't really have that. And it's so important. They used to do that years, you know, hundreds of years ago. All the family used to be around, all the women and girls in particular used to be present at the birth, didn't they? So they grew up knowing that it was safe and that it was fine, and you know, they'd seen it before. But our first experience of birth is when we ourselves give birth. The majority of the time, that is our first experience. So how amazing for them to have that and be so educated on it from such a young age. It's definitely something that I want to do with my own children. They're only 4 and 2, so they're little at the moment, but I want to because they're both girls, I want to make sure that they view it really positively and don't feel scared of it, because it just can change so much of how they experience it. But yeah, I wonder how Daisy feels, like how it must feel so odd seeing your birth. Like I can't imagine. I mean, amazing. I'd love to, you know, but it must just feel so incredible to actually see yourself being born.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she's watched it so many times as well. She loves it. Her friends have seen it. All Seren's friends, everybody's seen like Daisy's birth. And in our groups as well, we've got lots of my friends who are like either hypnobirthing practitioners or doulas, and their kids have seen it. And yeah, so it's beautiful actually. It's well, I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't know what happens as Daisy grows up. She'll be like, Mom, come on.
I think it's lovely. How amazing to see. What a lovely entrance she had. She was born in her sack, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. Yeah, very peaceful. And she's still like that now. Very peaceful, calm, kind. Yeah.
I do often think that with hypnobirthing babies is they are very calm. And I think it is because of their entrance into the world that they are, you know, kind of that way, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And, you know, even with this birth as well, my midwife handed me this little book, and she said it was all about induction, which here in Australia is huge. It's just like, that's what you do. You just induced. And there's a whole kind of thing around this about when, you know, when babies aren't ready, you know, and when babies, their kind of energy and their kind of soul imprint to the world, you know, when they wanted to be birthed, and then we're taking that away from them. And I know there's cases where you have to do it. I totally get it. But here in Australia, it's just very common that, oh, I'm just going in for my induction. I'm going, and that's just what you do. You just go in for your induction. And my midwife gave me this little, because I've always gone 2 weeks over. Okay. But again, because I was over 40, I knew there was like a slightly higher risk. And she wanted me to be aware of that. So she gave me this little book, and it talked about, you know, Seren was not induced before 40 weeks, but she did go on the Syntocin drip to get the surges stronger. Yeah. And I think about how she was as a baby, and then how she has been growing up compared to Daisy, Flinny, and obviously Iris is only 8 months, but very, very different. Really? And this book's written by a midwife, very educated midwife, who's written this book. It's with all the midwives in Australia, and it actually goes into just goes into different things. It was an eye-opener really. Wow. For me, and how different babies present when they've been induced, because you know what's actually in the Syntocin drip and how that can affect babies, you know. So much is going to come out, I think, as more people delve into it.
These are the things we don't think about though, or don't get told before. You know, these interventions are presented in a positive way, in that, well, it will speed your labor up, or it will, you know, bring your labor on. So it seems just a positive for people that don't know any different, don't know to ask questions. It seems like only a positive thing, but actually there's so much also associated with it that can not be good, that we don't get told. I think that's what's so frustrating, and why it's so important for people to find their voice and ask questions about all of these things, because they're not black and white, are they? They're not, it's not just.
Yeah, exactly. We're not, I think it's that whole thing about always trust your doctor, but I think now we are questioning and, you know, researching and finding out. And the other thing as well, because I always do go over 2 weeks, that's just something I do. That's just my, and it's not even over. That's just my body, you know, my body just beautifully goes to 42 weeks. But I did feel this time I was having a home birth, I was over 40, we'd had a couple of things that happened. So I wanted to really get to that 40-week mark. So I started having acupuncture, and I had that with Flinny as well, and amazing. From 37 weeks, I had it every week, and then I literally went into labor bang on day 40. So I'd highly recommend that. So natural.
With Iris, you were 2 weeks earlier, technically, with your labor.
Yeah, to my norm. Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah, and it was the same with Flynn, and the same with Iris. After my 4th acupuncture session, I started my surges on the bed, you know, in the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the acupuncturist, and each time I was like, I'm literally paying for the session, and I'm like breathing through the surges, and it happened twice. It's so powerful.
I do always recommend acupuncture, but hearing, like, you know, because I have heard like positive things about it for bringing labor on, but hearing that's incredible that it can have that.
Yeah. And the earlier you have it as well, so if you have it from like 37, 38 weeks, and then you just have it every week, then so as opposed to sort of like squeezing in at the end, so good.
When I was pregnant with my first, I went to like relaxation classes in the evening, you know, just to complement my hypnobirthing. And I remember once there was just your story about you being contracting when you were in the with the acupuncturist, but I remember once there was a woman there who was in labor, but she had come along to the relaxation class because she was just in early labor. I think it was her second baby. And she was there with the rest of us, but she was in labor. And I remember, as a first time mum who had never done it before, I just found it it really motivated me. And I thought, and I remember telling everyone after, like, there was a lady there, she was in labor. She was in this relaxation class in labor, because you so automatically think, well, surely she should be like on a bed writhing around in pain, not in this relaxation class. And I just really held on to that. I thought it was amazing. And I think, that just you telling that story just reminded me of it. I haven't thought about that for ages, actually, but it was really, as a first timer, incredibly inspiring. So I've asked you already why you videoed 2 of them. Well, you videoed all 3 of them. Do you watch your one with Flynn as well? Obviously, I know you've not got the end bit, but
do you know what? Because I had Flinny, and then 3 months after Flinny, we emigrated to Australia, and then it was kind of a whirlwind of, you know, all of that. And so I've only just recently found it, and I haven't actually, we've just got bits of it, but I haven't actually found the full bit. I know it's there somewhere. We've got this huge, big, like, database thing. So I haven't seen it, but I've got to watch it. And it's interesting because I had a different perception of what Flynn's birth was like until I found snippets of it, and I thought, wow, no, it was actually okay. I think that the primal noises were interesting for me because I'd never had that before, and then watching it back, I was like, no, that's actually really cool. So eventually I'm definitely going to make a video of that. And actually the very next day we filmed us all jumping into the pool, clean the pool out, or like 2 days later or something, clean the pool out, food it up again. And then we all got in with Flynn. So I have got that bit. So I need to weave it back together. And because it's interesting, because what I did with Flynn's is with Daisies, for anyone that's watched it, I kind of talk you through, and I'm talking about how, you know, I'm breathing through the surges and I'm eating and drinking and da-da-da. And then with Flynn's, I went even more into like documentary making. And he wasn't in a great position. He was always like kind of on the side, and wasn't posterior, but was just on the side. So the whole labor, I was walking up and down the stairs, and I was doing this whole thing where you kind of hang off the bed So your tummy's forward. And I think we did like a bit of rebozo, I think you call it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking people through that. So it's like a full-on birthing documentary.
Wow.
Step by step. And then I thought I had it all sorted out. And then I remember the midwife coming and saying, like, actually, you're only 3 centers dilated. And I thought, really? I felt like I was like ready to go. And birth can be so different, you know, just you don't know what you're going to get with it.
I've heard that often third births are longer than second ones. So you have a shorter second birth. So you would kind of assume that the third one would be even shorter. But I have heard it goes usually the other way, and third longer.
The midwife said that, and I do wonder if it's because you just think, got this,
you
or something happens.
And also the fact that you went into the toilet, that is very instinctive, isn't it? Because you sought out probably the smallest space you could to private space to have your baby. My friend did that. My friend, she birthed at home and had been in the birth pool, and she said suddenly she just needed to go to the toilet. She just couldn't explain it. And as soon as she went into the bathroom, she had the baby. Exactly kind of the same. It sounds the same.
I never thought of it like that. Yeah, like it's kind of instinct, primal instinct.
You seek out the smallest, kind of most, you know, what feels safest space.
Yeah.
And it's, again, it's primal. It's instinctive. So what has the reaction been like to the videos?
Oh, amazing. And still 10 years in, you know, and I think especially when I filmed Iris's birth, which I knew the intention was to share it. So I always knew I was going to do that. And when I shared that, you know, 10 years ago, we didn't have, I think we had Facebook. I can't remember, but I don't think we had Instagram. We definitely didn't have Instagram stories like that. You know, we didn't have any of that. So I think it was just put it on YouTube. And this time when I shared it on my social media, it just kind of went off. I couldn't believe it. And oh my gosh, so many hypnobirthing practitioners and midwives were sharing it, and mums, and it just kind of, I couldn't believe the response from it. And I kind of shared it and thought, you know, I'll just put my phone down, not worry about it. And I'm not really sure what's going to happen. And it was like an explosion. It was just amazing. And Daisy's birth, and then lots of people messaging me saying, you know, I still to this day use Daisy's birth and watch Daisy's birth. And I know that Daisy's birth went on the main Hypnobirthing website and it's been watched. Then I put the download for people to use, you know, and so people could just always download it. So I think it's been watched like over 1 million times on different platforms, which is incredible, little Daisy. And yeah, with 2 of my beautiful friends here in Australia, they're coming here tomorrow actually. I met them through Daisy's birth because one of them was, my friend Diana was a hypnobirthing practitioner. Her best friend said to Diana, I'm pretty sure I've seen that hypnobirthing woman in the school today. And she was like, there's no way. She lives in Wales. There's no way.
I love that.
And then she's like, I've definitely seen her. So my friend Di came to the school and saw me, and they both ran over. And that was 5 years ago. We've been beautiful friends ever since. And so that beautiful birth, or doing that birth, and I feel giving that out to the universe then gave me a gift of helping me connect with beautiful women when I moved to Australia. So
how incredible to be the other side of the world, basically, and have people recognize you from the video. That must have blown your mind a bit. That's amazing. So, sorry. So what is it you're up to now then?
Well, I've written a couple of books. They've been published. I published my second book in September, it was about a month before I gave birth to Iris. It's called Heal the Mother, Heal the Child. And that has become my biggest work, my biggest love, which is to really help mothers to heal. There's a lot of moms and it can be any type of healing, you know, it could be childhood stuff. It could just be even, you know, healing birth, trauma, anything like that. And just helping them to process that and giving them the tools in order to do the work whilst raising little ones. Because a lot of mums think, well, I haven't got time. You know, there are stuff that I need to do. You know, I am feeling a certain way. Or it came from me, actually. It came from when we emigrated to Australia 7 years ago. My mental health really deteriorated. And I realized that I had a lot of stuff that I hadn't worked through. And I think then being in Australia, not having my friends, my family, I think it was just me, and then 3 little ones. Finny was only 3 months. And I think it just kind of, I started to go through a bit of a mental health crisis, really. And it was at that point that I realized, gosh, there's a lot of stuff that I just need to work on. And I did. And then all my work became my book. So it's, I teach women I give them lots of guided meditations and teach them about breath work and different types of tools like EFT, emotional freedom technique. So I do that through my books, but then I'm just about to start online courses as well, in person online courses through Zoom in August. So and I used to hold women's circles as well. So I'm going to get back to doing that. Amazing. Holding beautiful women's circles and breathwork circles and all about the healing.
I love that. Where can people kind of go to find you? Where should people look?
Yeah, I'd say everything's on my Instagram. So Susy O'Hare Official, on my website, susyohare.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to me. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, I feel like I've known you for years because of watching that video so long ago. So and I will continue to show it to all of my clients because it is just so incredibly helpful. Both of them are. They're both beautiful. And I probably will continue to cry at Iris's birth.
Thanks, Claire.
I posted it yesterday and I had so many messages saying that is the most beautiful birth I've ever seen. It's incredibly special. So thank you for sharing and for sharing your stories and for just coming on and having a chat about hypnobirthing and birth. Always love to start the day, as I am over here, with talking about birth. What's better? I mean, it's such a great topic. I love it. So yes, thank you so much, Susy.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.